Welcome to Orange County Power Players, where we spotlight the personal, professional, and financial success stories of OC's top leaders. Here's your host, Danny Flores.
Welcome back to OC Power Players, where I interview some of the most successful people in Orange County. Today, I have the honor of interviewing two guests. One is zooming from Newport Beach. Her name is Holly Gilani. Holly is an accomplished corporate and trust litigation attorney with extensive legal experience in the United States and the Middle East. She brings a strong background in complex business litigation, representing clients around a range of industries, including real estate, technology, energy, healthcare, and manufacturing. Holly has successfully resolved disputes in California state courts and arbitration proceedings under the auspices of leading international arbitration centers, including American Arbitration Association, International Chamber of Commerce, the London Court of International Arbitration, and the Permanent Court of Arbitration at The Hague. Holly leads all phases of the litigation and arbitration process, from initial strategy to resolution. Recognized for her negotiating skills, Holly consistently obtains favorable settlements for clients in mediation proceedings. And our second honored guest here is Todd Wilkowski, zooming in from Cincinnati, Ohio. Todd focuses his practice on serving private, closely held, and/or family-owned businesses as their outside general counsel and trusted advisor on all legal and risk issues. Besides a prior career as an Air Force officer, Todd also has unique background in construction law, where he has advised companies on myriad legal issues affecting the industry in both private practice and as a general counsel. Before joining Boss Brown Todd served for 7 years as a general counsel for Baker Concrete Construction, the nation's largest construction specialty contractor, where he had daily oversight over the company's legal, enterprise risk management, contracts, ethics, compliance, political lobbying, and government relations functions. Prior to Baker, Todd was a partner with a large Cincinnati law firm where he gained substantial litigation, arbitration, and alternative dispute experience, while assisting the firm's clients in resolving risk issues that threatened their profile growth and continued sustainability. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to be with you.
Great attorneys on a podcast at the same time. So, who wants to tell us a little bit about what you guys do and your footprint?
You go ahead, Todd.
Well, I'll only take the lead just because I've been doing this for a little bit longer, but I can tell you unequivocally after getting to know Holly, Danny, I think she's gonna blow me out of the water. So I'm really excited. I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio, part of Frost Brown Todd. We're a firm that started in the Midwest, but we now have houses all over the country, and we did that largely not just to get bigger, but so we could serve our clients more. And we really have a bench of experts in just about every area you could imagine, from the hottest issue of today, which is tariffs, and immigration and customs and labor and all the things that are really hot button items for our clients. And so what we're able to do because of that is we've created this unique outside fractional general counsel model, which, as we talk about more through the program, really becomes that connective tissue. So that individual is the relationship person, right? And they're the ones that are going to be working regularly with that client, building trust, understanding their business, being brought in ideally into that decision at the table, the decision table, and as a strategist and as a connector. And so what that does is it helps us to bring the strengths of a smaller, medium-sized firm, that is going to not be as big and maybe will view you as, every client is important, but that, because that's their core base, you get a lot more responsiveness with them. with the large firm that sometimes can be a little distant, but has the relation, they have the resources, they have the responsiveness because of the deep bench. And so you get the relationship plus, and you get a one-stop shop. So that's what we've been trying to create over the last 11 years, largely based upon the experience that I had as a general counsel and as a client. And the really great thing is we believe every market, including Orange County and Houston and Denver and a lot of the offices we're in, would really benefit from this approach, especially companies that are growing but are not big enough or culturally or financially ready to bring a full-time general counsel or lawyer on board. And so got a chance to connect after we merged with Newport Beach office. We brought them in February, and we got into the market as Frost Brown Todd in 2023 when we merged with a firm called Alvarado Smith, which has offices in San Francisco, LA, and Orange County. So that's how we came into the market, but they're in Santa Ana. And really enjoying that relationship. And again, as I said, really excited about this new relationship with Holly and Gillan and the members of her firm, and what we might be able to bring to the market to be able to help leaders and businesses grow.
Thanks for the explanation. Now, you mentioned fractional counsel. Now, I know that not everybody knows what that means. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes, thank you. I think what's really interesting, Danny, is as an industry, we've been trying to figure out what that is. You know, what does that what unites a fractional CFO, Chief Financial Officer, which really was they were the forerunners of this movement, and a fractional Chief Information Officer, GC, fill in the blanks, Chief Marketing Officer. And so I think over the last couple of years, we've been able to define that and why it's not just a consultant or your traditional, especially with lawyers, kind of arm's length, highly transactional interaction. The fractional knows that they have an indefinite duration to the relationship, right? It's not, here's a 6-month engagement like a consultant. The fractional also knows that eventually they will work themselves out of a job, because as you're basically bringing them in at scale. When you hit a certain number, like let's say 25 million for a CFO, it's time to bring a CFO on full time. So you're working yourself out of a job, but you're setting the business up to be in a great position to be able to hire someone and then continue the growth, right? The second thing is a fractional has to have direct contact, and really they report to the CEO, the COO, the business owner, and they ideally have a seat at the table viewed as a business partner and a strategic mind. They're not a project-based, they might work with other people in the organization, but the person that they are responding to is they are basically replicating having a seat at the table with the leadership team. And so those are the two things that really separate it and unite us as a fractional industry.
Right. No, thank you for that explanation. Now, second question is, when you guys do an acquisition such as Newport, I would imagine that the reason you do that is because you're bringing in a whole team of experts in a different field. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, Holly, tell us what your teams and your expertise is that joining with Todd just gives a whole firm a wider range of services that you guys can provide to clients.
So thank you for that. Thanks for the introduction, Tom and Danny. I'm delighted to be here today and share some of our experience. I love talking to you, Danny, because it's always a pleasure to speak to you. And I think you're going to make this boring topic of law really exciting. You have a tendency to be able to do that. So basically, we joined Frost Brown Todd in January. Prior to that, we were just a boutique firm of 10 lawyers specializing in trust and corporate litigation. I do both trust and corporate litigation. And the Orange County market, of course, is a huge market, and it's growing. It's one of the areas in the country that's growing the fastest. And of course, Frost Brown Todd saw that opportunity they already had joined with or acquired another firm, as Todd mentioned earlier, Alvarado Smith, and this represents their interest to expand even further in the market. And I think we're looking at doubling our size here in the next couple of years. And so that was their interest. Frost Brown Todd is a Midwestern based huge player. We're about 650 lawyers, but their view of how to practice law is very consistent with what we were doing. What I've done all my life is to kind of provide very specific boutique style one-on-one advisory services to clients where it's very client-centered. And so because of doing so well in the Midwestern market, they've expanded. Now we have offices in Washington, D.C., where we handle policy, government policy, lobbying. And then on this coast, now we have 4 offices in California. And to go back to your question, I'm just so excited to be one of the lawyers at Frost Brown Todd, because they're I have never, ever met lawyers who are as nice as the lawyers. I mean, you almost think, how can they be lawyers? Because they're so nice and personable, polite, all the Midwestern qualities we love. And that's what I'm excited about. And of course, the expertise that we provide across the practices, it's so wide now. Whereas before we were only doing trust and corporate litigation, now we can offer our clients from A to Z in terms of legal services. So that's the advantage that Frost Brown Todd has brought us.
And well said. And I just was going to add a few things to that as a little bit of flavor. So I was out there in February meeting with the team, and I had met with Gilani and with Ted, who were the founders of the firm. And what was really cool was they were the ones that I think started looking first, because they were insightful enough to know we got these incredible, deep relationships that we have built with all of these different individuals, but many of whom are own family businesses. But once we finished with the estate planning and some other services, we got to send them elsewhere. And what we'd rather do is we'd like to build upon that relationship and say, we can help you with everything, right? We have that relationship, and now we have the resources. So you don't have to then go out and work with a myriad group of firms. And so when they started looking 2 years ago, they were already drawn, as Holly had said, to the Midwestern kind of culture, because it's very relational. It's very much about family. It's very much about building long-standing relationships instead of, honestly, I lived in Washington, D.C. for a long time. It's very, very transient. And so, you're not necessarily having the deep relationships you have here, but they also wanted to make sure they had the resources, so they could feel good about it. And then when they saw the outside, so there was about 5 firms at the end that were really going after this firm. It's very, very well respected, the Hess-Verdon firm. And they liked the OGC because they could kind of get that model of, okay, we got the relationships, we got the resources in the bench. Where is the connective tissue? Like, number one, how do we go to the market and say we're doing something different than others, which we are with this dedicated offering, but who's going to connect the dots? Who's going to be the consigliere? Who's going to be the concierge? Who's going to be the quarterback? Which is a role that Holly and I play in this role. And so they got really excited about it. And the last thing I'll say, because I've been here 11 years, and I'm drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit, but what I will say that's different about our firm is we are very collaborative. We collaborate. We're very team oriented, and anybody that will talk about a big firm, those aren't words they're going to typically use. And so that's what really helps with this model is, for example, Holly, she called me the other day. She goes, I've got an opportunity with someone. They're early stage. They're thinking about doing acquisitions. They're early stage, right? So they're lean and mean. And what are our resources? And I was able to, because that's my role, connect her with someone who that's all they work with is entrepreneurial startup companies. They know how to go lean, because you got to go lean, right? They don't have a whole lot of capital. And now that person, I said, could you call Holly? I think he called that day. And he said, how can we help? And so that's what really makes this model work, is because you call people and they don't go, well, Danny, what's in it for me? Or, well, am I going to
Right.
get credit? Or I'm really too
Right.
busy with all my own work. It's like, no, Holly, okay, when can we set up a call? Let's have a discussion. We've got a great team. We'd be happy to help. So, so very, very blessed to be in a culture that is really a fertile ground for this type of approach, where honestly, it wouldn't work with a lot of other firms.
Mhm.
Right. No, that sounds really interesting. Now, if you know, you've talked about entrepreneurs and helping families, at what point when one starts a business, do they have to start seeking counsel to basically be their right hand person just in case, and to keep him out of trouble and just keep everything good and flowing correctly?
Well, I know I'm monopolized. I'm happy to jump on this. Holly, you take the
No,
lead.
you go ahead and I'll add to what you
Yeah,
have.
because I think we have that one example, Holly, you and I talked about earlier, that I'll use to kind of put some flesh on the bones. But I think, Danny, we're dealing with a perception, and maybe rightfully so, is I only call the lawyer when I'm in trouble.
Mhm.
I only
Right,
call the
right,
lawyer when I've done everything I possibly can and it's not working, or I got sued. Now I got to call the lawyer. And
right.
meanwhile, we're saying, oh my gosh, call us. If you can call us earlier, we might have been able to avoid this. But
Yeah,
meanwhile, where's the disconnect? I'm afraid to call you and educate you because I know I'm going to get billed right away, right?
yeah, yeah.
Or I just don't know that the lawyer thinks like I do as a business person. They're overly risk adverse. And so they're going to actually advise me on things that it doesn't work for my business. So, wow, then I did that. That was a waste of time and I got a big bill for it. So that's part of our goal, is how do we move from the lawyer, traditionally the way it's viewed, to
Right,
the
right.
trusted business advisor, to the
Mhm.
strategist, to the person that is just as committed. Well, you're the most committed if you're a business owner to the growth of your business, but we want to be a business partner with you to be able to help facilitate growth, not play defense all the time.
Mhm.
And so that starts from the inception of the business, right? Answer to your question. And so
Right, right.
I was telling Holly, really neat story and a neat example of how this has worked is we have someone who's been a client for a number of years. We helped her. She's an African-American entrepreneur, very well respected, had been in the banking industry, sold a bunch of her businesses. She had a real passion, though, to not just go and go to Bermuda and tip a couple of tall ones and get a
Yeah,
tan. She said, like a lot of entrepreneurs, I see opportunities, and I see opportunities to help and solve problems. And so when COVID happened and our PPE supply basically was all based in China, and we couldn't get PPE to protect, a lot of the men and women who were out there on the front lines, she said, well, why don't we have a domestic source of PPE?
mhm.
We didn't really. And she also was like, and I came from a very economically disadvantaged neighborhood, but I've always been committed as a business owner to training and opportunities and 401ks for individuals that frankly don't have a history of owning homes,
Right.
don't have any savings, and really nobody's invested in them to try to give them skill sets so they can continue to advance. And so she bought a piece of property in a very economically disadvantaged part of Cincinnati with the
Mhm.
intention of, I'm going to put a world first class industrial plant here. I'm going to hire people in the community. And I'm hoping that out of this will blossom all kinds of new industries and bring, this environment back and this,
Right,
this
right.
community back to life like a
Yeah,
flower, right?
yeah, yeah.
So we help her form the company. We help her buy the piece of property because we have people that are, part of our organization. We help her get the tax credits because it was it was a lot going on there. We helped her with the bank and the other financing that she had to do, helped to put together all of her documents, helped to trademark all of her marks out there. We helped her even connected her with a fractional CFO group. So she didn't, she was at no place to hire a full-time CFO to be able to
Right.
help her with her financial statements and going out and talking to investors. We were able to help her with immigration issues. She had some custom issues on getting products in, negotiating with her equipment manufacturers. This is all pre-revenue, Danny. But we
Right,
were able to
right.
do it under one group to be
Yeah.
able to help her. So somebody who typically would be a 500-600 billion company that would have access to this kind of talent.
Right.
This is a pre-stage revenue company. So that's, we love to be at the very beginning of it, only because there's so many different things hitting a business owner. But what don't they have? They don't have capital to be able to go all on the outside. And they also have to have somebody who says, we are looking at this with, again, the idea we're here to help get you to yes, and we're helping you to grow because we like growth, right?
Right. Right.
I mean, I played soccer growing up, and if you're on defense all the time, the only thing you can do is tie, and that's not very
Yeah.
satisfying. Like, you want to win.
Right.
And so the
Yeah.
only way that you win is by growing. And if you grow, you have more money, you hire better people, and you
Right.
expand,
Right.
et cetera. So that's an example of just one example that we could talk about with how this model has really worked from small all the way to companies to scale till they actually need somebody like Holly and I full time.
Wow. That's amazing. Holly, what do you think? Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I love that example because it sort of tells you the whole picture of
Right.
what we do and what we do really well. We can come in from the very beginning and help you with every aspect. The business venture that Todd was referring to, that I had brought in a couple of days ago, is an AI company that's going to be involved in low-income housing development. And so immediately he put me in touch with one of our partners in, I believe, was it the Indiana office?
I think you've met a couple of folks through it, but he's mainly out of Cincinnati.
Out of
Focused on that
Cincinnati,
market.
okay. So this is kind of a testament that we don't even think about who's in what office. So this is what I love the most. We don't, about Frost Brown Todd, is that in most firms, attorneys work in little unknown silos, that they do their own little kind of corner of the world. And I'm a much more international, global person, and this kind of, I relate to this. We work across offices in different states, and we get to pick the best lawyer who can help at the price levels that the client needs from the very beginning, at the very onset.
Right.
And so on the flip side of that, if the client gets into trouble, Todd and I both come from a litigation background, but we realize as we do this is that because we have this approach with our clients, where we become much more of a conciliary, as Todd mentioned. And so we give advice in multiple, not just the matter for which we were hired to litigate or the dispute we were hired to negotiate, but we're like helping the client in other areas of their business as well. And so this is what's so unique about our firm, is we're able to do that. We and really be able to give focused help and do it across borders, state lines, office lines. It doesn't matter who's where. So that's what I love. And yeah, to answer your question, we love to get in the beginning, develop a relationship, find out. And contrary to all the other parts of the world, we have a common law system of law, which was kind of adopted from England. I've lived in many countries. Most of the world operates under civil law system, which is kind of based on Roman law. And so our system of law is very fact-based. So even though we have statutes and laws and, cases, each case brings its own factual sets of important factors that we look at, and the law looks at.
Right.
So we unlike civil law countries where the law happens to be the law and you kind of have to squeeze in and fit into it. In our system of law, it's the facts that run the case. And so each case is different, and each company is different, each entrepreneur is different. So if you have a client-centered approach like our firm has, we're able to give you a much better gamut of services that's adopted towards what you need. And that's why it's important to get in from the beginning and to help you out. But we do that at every stage we get in. You'll find that I find like clients calling me on stuff that I don't know anything about. Then I make it my business to know something about it, like
Right,
you're
right.
in the property business, but I had a client who had some, tenants who were taking over one of his properties from the times of COVID in LA. So I had to become kind of a specialist about how to get rid of tenants who are not really tenants or holdover occupants of the house.
Right.
And I referred them to this is before our joining Frost Brown Todd. I referred them to several real estate attorneys in LA, and he kept coming back to me because he couldn't get the right answer. And so
Right.
we found out the right answer was a little bit difficult to find, but we found it because it was very municipal oriented, and the laws were they had to do certain things to get to the point where they could even send them an eviction notice.
Right.
We actually had to pay them some money. But anyway, but that wasn't really very obvious what we had to do, but we learned what we had to do and we did it for them, even though we initially sent them to a number of lawyers who were supposed to be able to help them, but couldn't help them. So yeah, it grows, the relationship grows organically.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And the point that you guys made, that you want to be there right from the beginning. And if you're an entrepreneur, you can't look at it's going to cost me. You have to look at it's going to save me, right? It's like having auto insurance and you don't use it, but we pay for it every month, every year, and we keep paying for it. But the day we have an accident, we're covered. And I think having a good law firm and a good lawyer that's growing with you helps keep you out of trouble and out of litigation, because having that, the opposing party will also see that, like, hey, you know what, they know what they're doing, they're going by the book, they're dotting their I's, crossing their T's. Okay, we're good. And if any dispute comes up, you can hopefully settle it quick, right? And so that's super, super important for anybody who's listening, is you having good partners, because you guys would be considered as a partner in the operations. Now, if somebody is in a specific industry, do you guys specialize more in one versus the other? Or you guys, having such a large footprint and having so many attorneys, you basically have everything covered under one roof? And that would be either Todd or Holly, whoever wants to answer that.
Well, what I would say is this: OGC is an industry agnostic approach, right? Because you're building relationships and you're connecting the dots. And in many cases, I have from CPG to construction to real estate to IT to professional services as clients. The approach is still the same. Get to know them, get to know their business. But then the other thing that Frost Brown Todd did a couple of years ago is they developed industry teams within the firm. So like yesterday, I was at a seminar, all-day seminar put on by the manufacturing industrial team. And as you can imagine, it was focused on tariffs, and it was focused on, just a lot of the issues that are affecting all of our manufacturers. Where are you going to find your employment and your labor, and how about energy cost, and how are people preparing to make sure as you're building new facilities, when you've got draws from data centers and some of the challenges in some of our states that we're having in terms of transmission of power and generation of power, as well as what does this look like now with the new administration and maybe other sources of energy that we're not being tapped into before. We have a healthcare group. We have a group that's just focused strictly, as Holly knows now, on venture, because those issues can be very different. Working with PE, working with people that are growing their companies and doing it where, like, we can put together packages of, here's your first website. We're going to give you packages of your terms and conditions, your terms of use, your privacy policy for X. Because the reality is it's a loss leader. It's not that is not commodity work, but like, we know that they're going to need that package. And it's just another opportunity for us to strut our stuff a little bit, get sticky, show more of our people. And we know, right, we play the long game, the relational game, and that's going to help us grow. So I think, again, when you think about this approach, it's connective tissue. And it's like, and it serves the client really well for reasons we've talked about, right? I'm not going to learn on your dime, Danny, when you call me.
Right.
And then the other thing is we have people that are doing like, okay, you want to talk about employment retention, which a lot of people do for your key players. Well, let's talk about what are the long-term incentive plans that you might want to put into place. What's available to you? Well, I could go do all that research and it'd be really expensive for you. Or I could say, well, I've got a couple of people in Louisville. That's what they do 50 to 60% of their time. How about if we
Right.
set up a call on our dime just
Mhm.
to see if you like them, see if they've got great ideas? I feel pretty confident, Danny, that those are normally going to turn into transactions, but
Right.
people love the fact, what'd you say? You give me 30 minutes of your time and not charge me for it? Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
would.
unheard of.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, right. I mean, how many people have heard of that? And
Uh,
it's so refreshing, but it really reemphasizes the fact we want a relationship with you. And
right.
maybe we're not the right fit for you or vice versa. We don't want to
Right.
be presumptuous. But again, I feel super confident if you talk to our people because of who we hire and how we operate, there's a pretty good chance, that you're going to want to go with us. And the last thing I would say is we have found for the very reasons you said, this approach works best on a monthly retainer because, right, what's the other barrier to entry we got to get over is I don't want to call the lawyer because I know they're going to charge me for it versus, we know if we're going to build a relationship, we want you to call. We want to talk to different people in your organization. And
Right.
if there's a monthly retainer in place, then that removes the specter of the meter, the barrier. And so it allows us to, number one, start just deepening our relationship so much quicker. And then as a big firm, let's say a couple of months we're over, we'll carry it because there's going to be months where it's going to be more maintenance or it's going to be
Right.
Christmas season, right? And there's not a
Yeah.
whole lot of stuff going on. We can capture some of that. And
Right.
but for the client, it's also very predictable.
Right.
Unless it's something that throws a project off, and those happen. Um,
Mhm.
it's all under one roof. And so, we're trying to remember the way that you as a client are looking at these things. We want to be more relevant. We know that AI is coming. We're going to have to do things differently. But for me, I'm excited because I think AI is freeing up folks like Holly and I who are already wired to be advisors to be more advisory versus just billing for time.
Right.
Which,
Right.
so
Yeah.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
going to be, Holly. You're up.
I love that. I think that's exactly the heart of it. That's what people worry about when they call their lawyers is like the time and the billable hours, and we
Right.
can structure it in this outside general counsel framework where we can structure the finances based on what the client can afford and what they need, and be able to be more useful than less useful, which is what
Right.
happens sometimes when you're just billing strictly on hour and not on the functionality of the role.
Yeah, no, that's like really good, a good insight on that, right? Because maybe people don't know this, that you do have options other than just billable hours, right? You can go on retainer and you have somebody kind of on staff, 24/7 that way. And that's great to know. Now, you guys have given us a lot of insight on what you do and how you do it. If somebody's listening to us and would like to get a hold of you guys, how would they do that?
All right, well, you can get a hold of me at our law firm's main line, which is 949-706-7300. That's 949-706-7300. Or you can reach me at Gilani, Gilani @fbtlaw.com. And I think we all on our business cards have our mobile numbers, don't we, Todd? I
We
mean,
do.
our mobile number, I don't know any lawyer that puts their mobile numbers on their cards, but at FBT we do. And so you can reach me that way as well, if you're so inclined, so.
Perfect, perfect. Now, one last question. We're into the first quarter of 2025. What exciting plans do you guys have for the rest of the year?
Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah.
Share your contact info too.
Oh, sure. So, yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. Great way to get information, and I'm always happy to do that and start a conversation. And I'm under Todd, Todd Wilkowski, Wilkowski. And again, would just love to, I love meeting, talking to people about business, and I'd love to just chat with you, hear more about what your challenges are, and happy to share what we're learning and kind of what we're trying to do. So what I'm most excited about is there are so many new uses for this model, Danny, and you have the one company that's growing until they're, they need a full-time GC, which is typically the last person you add to your C-suite. Then we have a model where, private equity comes in, they buy a company, they're looking to professionalize it for 3 to 5 years. Oftentimes they have a CFO or a COO off the bench that they place with the company. We know that we can play a great role as a GC in that, because a lot of these companies for the larger acquisitions use these big New York and LA firms that are too expensive for the next 3 or 5 years. And really a lot of those firms, honestly, once the transaction's over, they're done with it. They're not really interested in that ongoing relationship. We can play a great role there with our OGC model. The other thing is there's a lot of companies that are large and they have one general counsel, and oftentimes they hire them just to defray cost, and then they realize, well, we're really disappointed because it's actually costing us more, because what's that individual doing? They're managing. They're really, they're managing the legal work. They're not doing it. But that person needs somebody on the outside that they can trust, that has resources, that can be invisible to the whole process and the executive team, make them look very, very good so they can advance. But the next one really gets me excited, and that is family office. And so when we talk about, where with Newport Beach and the family office services that I believe, that Holly's firm and Gilani and others are offering, I believe that's a game changer, because they're getting big enough where they actually need their own fractional outside general counsel. So we just see this, it gets me fired up this year, is because we can see a whole new way to utilize this and to be able to help more people, and particularly family-owned, privately held businesses that are the heartbeat of our economy. I mean, creating our jobs, moving us forward. And we need to find ways to better facilitate and support them so they succeed, because when they do that, communities thrive, families thrive.
Right.
So that's what gets me fired up, is this new relationship. I just think it's going to be great. It's symbiotic. It's going to be great for them, great for us, and great for our whole firm.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to add to that, I'm excited because, California is the 4th largest economy of the world. Like, I think we're ahead of Germany. We're ahead of so many countries in the world. And we're not made up of these big conglomerate companies. We're made up of these mid-sized companies who started as a mom and pop shop and grew. And now they're doing, much better, maybe in the middle. I have friends who started from absolutely nothing and actually sold their business for hundreds of millions of dollars. And so what happens with our joining of FBT is that we're now going to have all these lawyers coming from parts of the world where they worked with big, huge corporations. And where they honed their skills on big matters, coming in and helping these entrepreneurs get bigger and practice state-of-the-art law. And we're one of the premier firms on legal tech. We keep winning awards in this area. We're using a lot of technology in the way we're providing practice. And as Todd said, AI is going to change the way we provide services, and we're at the cutting edge of that. I think we were #1 firm by the Financial Times, out of London, voted us as #1 in that arena, legal tech arena, with regards to some services that we offer clients, specifically with experts and depositions. So anyway, very, very exciting stuff coming up, and we're glad that you gave us the opportunity to talk about it with you and your listeners.
Yeah. No. Thanks for coming on, Holly, and thanks for coming on, Todd. Really appreciate the insight and all the information that you shared with us. And to our audience, please go to ocpowerplayers.com, follow us on your favorite channel, and don't forget to like it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to Orange County Power Players. Want to share your success story? Apply to be a guest at ocpowerplayers.com/guest.